The new Alone in the Dark has a trophy for playing the game for 8 hours, so I'm going to see if I can get every other trophy before I unlock that one. To do this, we'll have to finish the game not once but twice, while collecting every collectible not once but twice. On one of these playthroughs we'll have to never heal our health bar, and on the other playthrough we have to finish the whole game in under 3 hours. We'll also be getting every ending of the game and getting a whole bunch of miscellaneous and story trophies along the way. So we start our first playthrough on easy, but I had high hopes for the puzzles, so I stuck it on old school puzzle difficulty. The game starts and I'll just say off the bat, the story did nothing for me, and about 15 minutes in I started to skip the cutscenes. It's probably okay, but it's just not my vibe. And while David Harbour and Jodie Comer were hired to elevate the game, it overall just felt a bit stunt casty, and I wish the money they got for this just went back into the game. And before we start, to address the elephant in the room, back in June the developers PCs Interactive were shut down by Embracer Group. And while I do feel overall negative on the game, I do think at a discount it is worth playing, and I wish they got a chance to define what they had started here. We chose to do our first playthrough as David Harbour, and then the characters separated. Both playthroughs are mostly the same, however each character has specific sections and some unique collectibles. As for the gameplay, we can sum it up by saying it's basically a Resi 2 remake. Most of the puzzles revolve around collecting objects and using them elsewhere, and there's just a lot of random stuff to find. We actually start with 2 collectibles already in our inventory, but we need to examine them to make sure they count for the trophy. And then we solve the first puzzle by putting a key in a door. Instantly we find another locked door, and then we find a key. I'm great at these puzzles. And because of our amazing puzzle skills, we got our first trophy for opening the door. As you can see, we can pick up healing flasks, and if we push up on the D-pad, we'll heal. But obviously, for the trophy, we can't do this ever. There are also reports that even if you reload your save or start a new playthrough, if you've ever healed, then you're locked out until you delete your save. So we made sure to get this over with and do it on our first playthrough. The 2 collectible types are clues, which are usually just documents and don't have any gameplay uses, but we also need to collect 15 sets of lagniappes. For the most part, these don't do much, but if we collect all 3 of a certain set, then we'll unlock new endings and some new weapons. We continued on and found more puzzles, like this weird jigsaw on the boiler, and a broken valve with steam shooting out. We also found a map of the house which will come in handy. Our 2 protagonists were reunited, and we need to make sure we talk to everyone in the game. So we can talk to Jodie here, and each time you meet someone, there's usually 3 different conversations you can have. After talking to her 3 times, we found our first actual puzzle, which was very easy. After skipping our first cutscene, we ended up in the nightmare world. We saw our first enemy, but got ambushed by another one. We killed it for a trophy, but in my first combat sequence I had already lost some health, which I can never get back. So I won't do this a lot, but I reloaded my save to get through this section without taking any damage. We met someone else for some more conversations and we found our first melee weapon. And for killing an enemy with it, we got another trophy. Now, one thing worth mentioning here is this game has a very poor audio mix. When you're exploring, the game sounds fine, but the combat is so loud, so I've done my best to make this video watchable, but if you can't hear a trophy pop, that's why. We got a trophy for finding a talisman, which we can use for a puzzle. So we can set these 3 dials to different numbers, and from looking at a note, we know the numbers are 3, 5 and 8. However, I could just not for the life of me work out how to actually set the numbers. I took another look at the note, and then I decided to see what the modern puzzle difficulty was like. This gave us number indicators at the side, and honestly, even now, I still don't actually fully get what I was meant to do. But basically, when you solve these talisman puzzles, it will show you a location, and once you go there, it will teleport you back into the real world. We're now in chapter 2, and the puzzle issues didn't stop. You need to arrange these tiles in a specific way to make this image, and I don't know why, but I could just not do it. It took me over 4 minutes to solve this, but thankfully I was rewarded with a trophy. Back in the nightmare world, we found new enemy types, including a gate. And as we came back to the new world, we got a trophy for finding a bag and for completing a lagniappe set, which means I've found 3 specific ones. For completing that set, we also unlock the shotgun, but instead of using it just yet, we kill an enemy by throwing a brick at it. Now, I don't know if it's just because I've been playing so many puzzle games recently, but I love it in puzzle games when every small detail matters. So here we do this jigsaw puzzle, which is super easy, and then the numbers 947 just magically appear, and then the talisman auto solves it for us. Would it not be like 100 times better if there was actually a 947 scratched into the tiles the whole time? Either way, this leads us to the fireplace and we enter chapter 3. And I just want to take a quick moment here to appreciate it, because this section of the game actually looks quite good. But sadly, gameplay wise, it's not. The Darkman appears, who absolutely blows out your speakers, and if you get near him, you die. However, he also constantly teleports around, and it's hard to actually understand where you're meant to go the first time around. After 2 or 3 attempts at this section, we place the dial down and can move on. This section is very combat heavy, and we kill enemies with fire and with our shotgun. We pick up a Tommy gun and then go to the Egyptian section of the game. The temple is full of these light puzzles, which are honestly barely even puzzles, but they're still quite satisfying to solve. And when we get out of here, we get another trophy. And then instantly we head back into the nightmare world. We finally use our Tommy gun for the first time, but while doing so, we get down to 1 HP. And our biggest obstacle were actually the easiest enemies in the game. These guys will fly around and charge into you and do a tiny amount of damage. But at this point it's fatal, and every other hit is fatal too. So I thought our best bet was just to ignore them altogether and mash the dodge button. Which actually worked. But for the rest of the game, I was now on high alert. We're nearing the end of our first playthrough, and at this point I had enough collectibles to unlock this secret cutscene where you can kind of guess what happens. And then we ended up on a boat, and then we got off the boat. And now with another set of collectibles, we could go talk to this tree to set up one of the endings.
Boris will have my full support as he does that.
Well, I don't know why he's talking to a tree.
And we reunited with Jodie Comer. This small section of the game was forced perspective, and I genuinely think the game could have been a lot more interesting if it was just like this the whole time. We exhausted our conversations and went into the cupboard to start the final section of the game. This is the final boss of the game. Okay, this is actually the final boss of the game, and for some reason when you stab him, it plays the loudest sound effect ever. We easily defeat him and move on to chapter 5, which is very short. I made a safety save here so I could get the different endings, and first I made sure to speak to everyone here for the conversation trophy, and then we waited by the fountain to move on. This huge monster who appears is actually the final boss, and is very much a Resident Evil style boss. You just unload your bullets into him, he'll grow eyes, and then you shoot the eyes. This first phase takes place up here, and once you've done enough damage, you'll fall down to the lower level. The lower level works basically the exact same, except you'll start to spawn enemies as well, and with only 1 HP, it is very easy to not be paying attention and die. So on our second attempt, we beat the first phase, and then died because I didn't see this guy coming towards us. On our third attempt, we got smashed as soon as the fight started, but on our fourth attempt, we beat the first phase, and on the second phase, we just played as safely and slowly as possible. Dodging is so much more important than reloading, and after doing enough damage, the fight was over, and we get a trophy for not healing, and another for getting that specific ending. And before starting our second playthrough, we reloaded our save and got this other secret ending. And then I took a look at the trophy list and realised that with this save, we could easily get a trophy for pointing a gun at someone. We completed that playthrough in 3 hours, 33 minutes and 3 seconds, and moved on to playthrough 2. Like I said, a lot of the game is the exact same, but we need to get the rest of the collectibles here and beat this playthrough in under 3 hours. I think this has now been debunked, but when I played this, people thought you had to get every collectible on both characters, so that's what I did here. Our speedrun had an awful start as I forgot to grab the torch and the key for this door. There's honestly not much to show here, because I'm playing on easy and all the puzzles are the exact same, like this 947 one. But so far we've done 2 other speedrun videos on the channel, and in both of those videos I've had a game breaking bug that's made me reload a save. And it happens again here. Near the end of the game, we got our last clue collectible,
Closing the refuge.
unlocked our last door, and got a Jodie specific story trophy. We then found our last lanyard before we met David Harbour again. I was a bit worried here because I thought this would be the final conversation and it didn't pop, but it ended up being fine. We used paint thinner on this painting to unlock one of the endings, and went into the cupboard to enter the last part of the game again. We took out the final boss, and took out the actual final boss. And during this cutscene, we have to wait for the specific moment, and then hold the left stick in a specific position. And this will get you an ending which actually counts as finishing the game. So we beat the 3 hour time by a lot. Then we beat the shouty boss again, and moved on to chapter 5. By speaking to everyone here again, we got new dialogue because we're playing as Jodie Comer, which unlocked a conversation to Thelfie.
I hope you find what you're looking for, Grace.
Then we gave something to Grace to unlock another ending. And now all we had to do on this playthrough was to get the actual ending of the game. Playing on easy and actually having the ability to heal, the final boss was a lot easier and we did it on our first. Then we got back up, fell through the floor and did it on our first go. And now, just like the end of the Jedi Survivor video, all we have to do to get the platinum is do nothing.